everybody, welcome back into Watch Me Wednesday. It's episode 11 and I hope you're all excited. Today I'm going to do a paper piecing tutorial. I know a lot of you were getting all set and ready to learn how to do some paper piecing. So I want to briefly go over how it's going to work, and what I'm going to encourage most of you to do is to watch me, not to actually go ahead and sew while I'm doing it. Hi guys, I'm so glad you're all ready to go and happy you're in today. So I'm just saying I want to go over a few little rules I think that are going to help you greatly when you watch me do this. What I suggest is that you watch me do the paper piecing first, and then you can go ahead and I'm going to post the video afterwards, and then you can re-watch. Hi Janet, how are you? So you can go ahead and re-watch it when I'm done. But if you have questions and stuff, I would love to answer those too, so you can always put them in the comments afterwards as well. So I'm going to ask you one favor right now. If you can go ahead and hit the share button so that other people or other friends of yours that might want to have a little video tutorial on paper piecing, they might, then they could take a look. So definitely hit the share button, and we're going to share some of the love today. So welcome on in. Thank you, Kyra, for sharing. So we're going to get started. I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera forward so you're not going to see my face, because I want you to see what I'm going to be working on. That's most important. But before I pull the camera forward, I want to talk just a little bit about your sewing machine real quick. So just to get your sewing machine set up for paper piecing, here's what I like. First of all, I love Aurifil thread, and as you know, many of you know, I have several Aurifil thread collections out there. So one of my favorite weights is the 50 weight, and that is absolutely perfect for piecing. So you want to get 50 weight thread, and to know for sure that you've got 50 weight thread, if you're buying Aurifil, it's the orange spools. If you have the green, it's 40 weight. I did, if you remember, I did Watch Me Wednesday a few weeks back on thread, so you can go back and watch that as well. So put a 50 weight thread in your machine for your piecing, okay? Then the other thing you're going to need to do too is I like Microtex 7010 needles for paper piecing. It's a very thin, fine blade which pierces through your papers and your fabric quite easily. In fact, this is pretty much the only needle I use now. If you're using batiks, it's even better because it leaves a smaller hole in your batiks, and your batiks are more tightly woven fabric. So a 7010 Microtex needle. So you're going to want to put that in your machine. Now, actually, I'm going to change out my foot. So this is one of the things that you're going to want to do too. So you can choose one of 2 feet. So on my Viking, the 2 feet that I would pick from would be the A foot, which if you can see the A foot, it's got a wider opening. That way you can see the line you're going to be sewing on, because with paper piecing, all you're doing is sewing on the line. Or this is my 1/4 inch foot. Now, I typically don't ever take my 1/4 inch foot off my machine if I'm doing quilting, only because I've gotten so used to being able to see things in between the two sides of the feet, so I can see pretty easily. But if you have problems seeing the line that you're going to sew on, use a foot like this. So I don't know what kind of machines you're using, but on a Viking it's A foot, or you're going to use your 1/4 inch foot on the Viking. The 1/4 inch foot really isn't necessary at this point, but it will be necessary when you're joining the units together. So you want to snap that foot on there, okay? So you've got your 50 weight thread, your Microtex 7010 needle, and either a wider foot so you can see the line, or your 1/4 inch foot. Now, the other thing you need to worry about when you're setting up your machine is you want to take that stitch length down to 1.5. The default stitch on most machines is a 2.5. That's too large for paper piecing. You want to take it down to a 1.5, and the reason behind that is because you need a strong seam allowance, because when you go to pull those papers off, you do not want to be pulling out your stitches. You've gone through all that hard work of piecing it together, and you don't want to pull those stitches out. And the other reason why you bring it down to a 1.5 is because it perforates your paper way more than a default stitch of a 2.5 would perforate it. So thereby, perforating it more, it's easier to get those papers off. So those are the things you need to know for your machine right now. Now we're going to go into our paper piecing part. So many of you went ahead and you purchased my spinning wheels pattern, so you guys are ready to go. If you're just joining me in for the first time, these videos do get reposted, so you'll be able to go back and do this if you like. You can watch it, and then you can go back and purchase the pattern to do it. So this is what we're going to be working on. We're going to be working on one block, okay? Because we want to start small, and then you can grow big. And in a few weeks, we're going to have a little giveaway, and I can't let on to the giveaway yet, but it involves this. So anyway, it involves the block, I should say. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera forward, so hang on tight for a second because I want you to come in close, and I'm going to go ahead and angle it down here so that you guys can see what I'm doing, okay? So this is what we're going to be working on. So a few things that you're going to need to see is you need to have your rotary cutter. Now I use a 60mm blade because that's just what I use. Especially when I'm doing my Judy Niemeyer quilts, it goes through way more layers of fabric because you have a little more clearance here on your rotary blade. Then, if you're not familiar, and it's on the supply list on the back of your pattern, so on the back of the pattern it tells you to get the add a quarter ruler. So this is one of my add a quarter rulers. I have a lot, but if you're not familiar with an add a quarter ruler has this little lip here, okay? That little lip is a perfect 1/4 inch, so it will hang on to your template plastic when you are folding over your paper. So the other thing you'll need is template plastic. Template plastic I like to use because it's nice and thin, it's durable, it lasts you forever. You can cut them to whatever size you want. So depending on how long your seams are, you can make them really super long, and I have a variety of them. This one is actually one of my original ones when I started paper piecing. You can see it's kind of grayish because the newsprint rubs off over time. So this is probably a good, I don't know, 16 years old. So they last, they stand the test of time. The only thing that will damage them is if you cut them, like I did there, or if you put them near a hot iron, okay? So you need those two things. Then I'm going to show you a little tip with this. This is a fabric glue pen, which is my newest favorite sewing aid, and it has been for some time now. All of these notions and things I do sell on the website, so you can get them if you like after you're watching the video. They are refillable, and one of the most common questions when I teach in my class is how do you refill them? They kind of wind up like this, and then this pops off. So you can see I have a lot of glue still in there. This pops off like that, and then it pops back on, and you can, the new one would pop back on, and then you wind it down. Several brands you can get. I'm sorry about that. My mother was calling me. She knows I'm broadcasting too. Sorry, Mom. Anyway, Fons and Porter's is the brand that I sell online, and but Sewline makes them. The refills are adaptable to all pens. I think they're all the same exact pens, and the refills match one another. You'll need a pencil, and I'll show you why in a minute. I showed you the needles. We don't need to show that, and the thread. And you need some glue, a glue stick. So the glue stick, it has to be washable. If you can see that, it has to be washable, non-permanent. So you don't want a permanent glue, okay? That's really important. And then, of course, I have my little sunflower thread cutter, so if when you were chain piecing, you can just cut your threads there if you want. So, and a cutting mat, and if you have a little iron nearby, you can use a little iron. I like to get up off of my bottom because I like to get up just to move around, so I keep my iron over there when I'm home. But if I'm at a retreat or something like that, I have a little iron. So we're going to be working on, I'm actually going to show you triangle 2 first today, okay? So what you need to do from here is, and I know that some of you are already ready and you've got your fabrics cut and your paper foundations cut. So what you're going to do, and I told you last time, you're going to cut your foundation papers out. If you can see this, it's a little bit past that dotted line there. That's important. You don't want a whole lot of excess paper out here because all your fabric belongs on the block, not on the excess paper. So you need to trim them down. If you haven't done that, please trim them down close into the block, but not on that dotted line, because that dotted line you're going to trim down later. If you look at the back of here, this is when I did the trim down, so you can see I trimmed it down to the size it needs to be after all the fabric is already on, okay? So you'll have 4 of these paper foundations. Right now I have 3 because I made one ahead of time because I wanted you to see what it's going to look like, so that's real important. So you're going to work on 4 at a time. Now, on what I want you to do on one of them is you're going to, this is the one side, the printed side, and you're going to turn it over to the unprinted side. And if you can see what I did here, I marked the lines on the back, and I also marked the section numbers, okay? And then I also marked the outer edge of the block as well. That's going to help you because you're not going to have to hold up your fabric to the light anymore, or your foundation piece to the light anymore. For those of you who have paper piece and you've been holding it up to the light, it's a little trick that I'm going to show you that you don't need to do that anymore. But you only need to do this on one foundation. If you really wanted to, you can do it on all 4. I tell you to do it on one, but you're always going to start off when you're chain piecing with this piece, the piece that has the markings, the pencil marks on the back, okay? So the next thing you want to do, and if you can see this, so you want to set up your pieces in this order. Now, in each pile, you will have 4 pieces. So this is section number 1, this is section number 2, section number 3, 4, 5, and 6, okay? So in each pile, you are going to have 4 pieces, and you want them lined up just like I have. You want them stacked kind of and staggered on top of one another. Because the objective here is we want to get rid of a pile first before we move on to another pile, okay? So I'm going to set this back just a little bit so you can see what I'm going to do. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, we want to get rid of that pile number 1. So I'm going to start with my first foundation piece in that section number 1. Okay, I'm going to take my glue stick, and I do have these on my site. If I'm out of them right now, you can click on the notify me button and you'll get them. So you're just going to dab a little bit in there into that number 1 section, and you're going to place your fabric right over top of that, covering both lines, okay? Because you want that section covered. You're not going to line it up with both lines. So if you can see through, I covered it really well. But I don't have to hold that up to the light because I can see exactly where it's covered. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other ones, okay? So you're going to swipe it there, take your number 1 piece, and put it on exactly like I did the other one, okay? Swipe a little bit. You don't have to be overzealous with the glue either, and you're just going to place it on there, okay? So now we're done with the glue stick. And yes, this is a particular brand, Yoo-Hoo, which I like, but if you have like an Elmer's, which is washable and non-permanent, that'd be fantastic too. It works, but please don't use a wet glue, okay? Wet glue is going to make everything messy and gunky and dry and not easy to handle. So now that we've done this, we've gotten rid of that first pile. Isn't that nice? So now we're going to turn these over, and this is the side we're going to be working on from now on. We don't need to really work from that other side. The only time we'll turn it over to the other side is when we press, okay? So this piece is the piece that I had marked on this side. Now, I want to take it, and one of the cardinal rules of paper piecing is everything's always in numeric order. You're always going from section 1 to section 2 to section 3 and 4. And likewise, line 1 to line 2 to line 3 to line 4. You're never skipping a line, never skipping a section. So you don't go from section 1 to section 3 or line 1 to line 3. You always go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So don't ever skip a line. If you did something wrong, go back and check whether you skipped a line or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover my section 1 there because I've already put my piece on, and I'm going to put my template plastic right on that line 1. I'm going to take my paper and I am going to fold it back. I'm going to put a nice crease on that. And I'm holding down my template plastic. Now I'm going to take my add a quarter ruler and I'm going to get that to hang on to that template plastic. I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to make my 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I get rid of the scraps. There's very little waste on this. So now I'm going to keep it like this. One of my mottos as far as paper piecing is, first of all, what you do to one, do to the other. So you know, I put all the number 1 pieces on. So what I did to the first one, I did to the others before I move on to another step. The other rule is once you've done a step, okay, leave it alone. Less is less. The less you touch it, flip it over, turn it over, the less confused you'll be. So you want to leave it just like this and set it aside until you're done with the others, okay? For those of you who follow me on Facebook, you often see me with little lineups, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to do the same thing. Fold it over, trim it down, and I'm going to set it aside, and I'm just going to set it aside on top of the other one, just like that, okay? So now I'm going to take the last one, and you're going to do 4. I'm doing 3, remember, because I already made one. Oops, it's plopping over on me. Oh, no. Okay, so now I've got my 3 ready to rock and roll, okay? So I'm going to pull the one that I had that was marked where I did the pencil marks on the back. Okay, so that's when I'm pulling it to the top. If you need to keep it down, just put something on top. So now what I want to do is I want to take my section number 2, okay? Now, you can see because I made these marks here, section number 2 is right here. Now, the trick here is that this piece actually has to go about 1/4 inch past that because that is my seam allowance. So if you can see what I did, this piece needs to cover here, okay? So it needs to cover that section. That's where I'm not going to have to hold up to the light. So basically I'm going to lay it down on here, and here is the cool trick. So I can, oops, my quilt inspector came and he's coming up here to watch, I think. So I'm going to try and make room for him back behind the camera, okay? So you lay behind the camera, bud. He just wants, no, you can't come in here. He just wants to watch and make sure I'm doing this tutorial right for you. So anyway, so back to what I was saying here, okay? So we want to put our piece down just like so, and you can see I have a little smooch there. So now if we want to check to make sure that's in properly, I'm going to put it where I drew that imaginary line there where that 1/4 inch comes out. And if I lift everything up, that includes section 1 piece, I can see fabric there. That means that I have that whole section 2 covered. But it doesn't just stop there. You want to come out to the edge of the block and lift it up and see if I have that pink fabric there. And I do, because section 2 goes all the way out to the edge of the block. Now, here's the kicker. Section 2 only goes here, only goes to here. It doesn't go all the way to the edge of the block because 5 is there, right? So you're going to lift that up and lift the first section up, and look at that. There it is. So I've placed this properly. So now that I know that I've placed this properly, I'm going to show you a little trick. So I leave about a scooch, about 1 or 2 threads. Not a lot, because if you do, you're going to lose your seam allowance down this end. you want to put a little bit of your glue pen inside the seam allowance. So all you're doing is putting your glue pen in here, putting that down. It's in place of a pin. Look it. Now it's ready to go to the sewing machine. So I'm going to just set that aside. I'm going to set it right here, and I'm going to do my next one. So for those of you who are just joining in, hit that share button so others can get in. So now, remember, this is the only one that I marked with the pencil, but I already know because I checked where it fits. All I have to do is line this one up the same exact way that I did the first one, and I'm good as gold. And I know that this one's going to be correct. I'm not putting a lot in there, and I know a lot of you are going to probably ask me, does this glue get in your needle? No, because you're putting it inside the seam allowance, okay? So I'm just looking at this one, and I'm matching it up the same exact way that I did those first two, okay? And I'm putting a little dab of glue in there, and now they're ready to go. So my quilt inspector, he needs to just move just a little bit, I think, because I want you to see my sewing machine here. I'm going to put these in my sewing machine. This is where I'm going to actually open them up. Now, when I start sewing, this is going to open to my right, but I want to start sewing. I'm going to mark this for you. I want to start sewing right where that pencil mark is. So like a couple 2, 3, 4 stitches before that solid line, and then I'm going to come right past and out, okay? And I'm going to chain sew all of them. So here we go. We're going to start sewing and just keep going, okay? Now, if you have a thread cutter and you want to use that, you can use it on your machine. That's fine. If you don't and you just want to chain piece all the way through and then cut the threads in between, that's fine too. You do what works for you best here, okay? I happen to have a thread cutter, so I'm going to snip the threads in between each one, okay? And you will be doing 4. I've already done my 4th one already because I made it ahead. I did 3, but chain sewing is the most efficient way of doing this. Okay, so now I'm going to rotate the camera back this way because I want you to see what's doing. And my quilt inspector back here, he just doesn't want to move. Okay, and it's my quilt inspector number 1, by the way. All right, so now we need to press this, and because my iron is over there, I'm not going to walk over there. I'm just going to do a finger press for you because I want to get you onto the next steps. So we're going to do a finger press. Really good. Okay. All right. So you do it to all. What you do to one, you do to all of them, okay? Because that's important, okay? So now we're going to turn these back over, and I'm going to put the one where I marked the pencil on the back on the top because I want to work with that one first. Now I want to show you a little trick here. So as we're going along, you can go ahead and at this stage you can trim some of that off just to get rid of it. And I did it just next to the edge. I didn't do right where we're going to trim later because I just want to get that out of the way. But only trim after you've pressed it open, okay? So now you just continue doing the same exact thing, but we move on to line number 2, okay? So we're moving on to line number 2. And actually, boy, I did really good when I calculated the measurements on this. There's a 1/4 inch. It was exactly a 1/4 inch. So what I do to one, I do to all. I'm going to put that down on the side, and I'm going to go ahead, trim, fold and trim. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this. I just told you you could do that if you wanted to, so I'm going to get rid of that first. Fold and trim. Sometimes there's a little bit, sometimes there isn't, but you always want to make sure, you always want to trim to a 1/4 inch. We don't want to leave any excess there. I'm going to use this to just hold it down. So this has the little thread cutter that I have has multi-uses too. So I think I have a couple more of those left on my website too. Okay, so what I did to one, I did to all of them, okay? Now, I'm gonna bring that one with the pencil marks to the top, and now we wanna add our section number 3. So section number 3, we marked it already, and again, section number 3 has to come out another 1/4 inch beyond that line. So when I add the fabric, I'm gonna do my checks, okay? So I'm gonna take my fabric, I'm gonna put it on here, and I'm kind of lining it up and I'm looking, okay, here's my section 3, so I want to at least see some fabric here, okay? And I probably can move it a little farther this way if I wanted to. So now all I want to do is I want to do my checks, okay? So I want to go here to the edge of the block and I want to pull all the fabric up. That means the first 2 sections. And I'm checking to see if I have fabric, the section number 3 there, and I do, so that's good. Then I'm going to go to this imaginary little line here, which is that 1/4 inch seam allowance, pull everything up, and I want to look for this fabric, the one that I'm adding, not the ones that are there already. So if I see fabric, I'm good to go. If I don't see fabric, I'm not good to go, and that's what gives you your holes in when you have paper piecing, that when you haven't covered a section. Now, section number 3 only comes out to here where section 5 is, right? So we're gonna go here and we're gonna just check, and look, I got plenty of fabric. So I'm good as gold on this one too, so that's good. So now, again, I'm gonna leave that little scotch of fabric there, scooch, scotch, hair, 1, 2 threads, however you wanna say. I'm gonna take my fabric glue pen, okay? And I'm just gonna put some right inside that seam allowance in place of pins, instead of pins, I should say. Now, I can see where I need to line this up, and I never trim this one back for you, so we're gonna trim this one back because I want all of them to look alike, okay? So I wanna line this up exactly how I did that one, so I just need a little bit of fabric showing. So if you can see what I'm referring to, see the fabric? That's what I want it to look like. I want it to look just like that one. And I'll show you in a second. There's my fabric glue. So I'm gonna pull that 1/4 inch seam back, couple dabs of glue in there, set that aside, take the next one and do the same thing, line it up the same way, okay? All right, and now these are ready to go to the sewing machine, but let me show you. See how these all look alike? See how they're lined up and they look alike? Can you see that? I hope. It's hard for me to see the camera because it's angled down, but I'm thinking you can see it. I can see my hands in there, so I'm thinking you can see it. So anyway, so now what I did to one, I did to all. Now we're down 3 piles and we only have 3 to go, which is good. So we bring it over to the sewing machine now. So now I'm gonna turn you over here to the sewing machine so you can see. So again, remember I said that these now will open up to the right, and we're gonna start about 3-4 stitches beyond that line 2, and then we're just gonna sew right on line 2 and come right on off the edge, okay? Snipping in between if you want, or just keep going and then you can snip the threads later, okay? So again, we're doing what we do to one, we do to all of them. And this is a great pattern, my spinning wheel pattern, because it's nice. There's no little points that you need to match or anything like that. It's a nice beginner pattern for you to do and to work on. So now that that's done, what do we do now? We press, remember? So the next step would be come back here. This is the way I like to set up too, by the way, if you haven't noticed that already. I like to have my sewing machine to the right of me and my trimming here so I can just move everything in. A lot of times when I teach class, students set their cutting mats and their ironing boards on the left side of the machine, and then they got to bring it around the front and move it in. I like it here so it's easy. See what I mean? So I'm going from here to here. I don't have to move my chair from around and come around and move everything in. It just makes more sense to me, so I move my machine all the way over to the right. So now we're just going to go ahead and press again, and again my iron is across the room, so you're going to press, and what you do to one, you do to all, okay? All right, so now flip them back over, and we want the one with the pencil at the top. Now I'm going to start to go a little bit faster because I want to get you through this block and to the end, okay? And so I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking. We're just going to go, and you're going to watch and see how I do it. This is called, once you get in a rhythm, you can do this too, okay? So adding the next piece, putting it on. I know that this fits because I'm going to do my checks here, okay? Doing my checks. Plus, I've made this one before. Putting a little glue in, setting it aside. Line 3, fold over, add a quarter, trim, then put your piece on. And I'm going to line it up just like I did this one. Oops, you know what? I'm going to trim this off. Trim that off. Line up my piece just like I did the other one. Make it look just like it. Trim this off. Okay. I wish I could do like a little speed, you know, make it go faster. And then all the way to the end, but I want you to see the process. So, okay, so now we're going to sew. And turn this around again. I'm going to sew. Okay, and one more. And you just want to stay on that line. Okay, now we're coming back here and we are going to go ahead and we're going to press. Okay, press. Press. What you do to one, do to the others. Press, press, press. Now we're going to turn them back over, and the one with the lines is on the top. We're going to go to section number 5 now. When you go to section number 5 to fold back, all this is going to come back because you've sewn through the lines. So I'm going to move this up a little bit just so you can see. Okay? You are going to hold the paper down underneath that template plastic, and you're just going to pull those threads away from the paper. Yeah, the paper will rip just a little bit. That's okay. It's okay. Then you're going to trim it back, okay? Just like you would the other times. See, now watch again. I'm on line 4. I'm going to add my section number 5, folding it all the way back, bringing that fabric with me, and I'm going to pull it away, okay? Then I'm going to go ahead, trim, okay? Setting it aside. Doing the same thing. What you do to one, you do to all of them. Do you see how fast this goes? Don't just do one at a time because you're more likely to make mistakes. I've seen it so many times in my classrooms. Chain piece, just like I'm doing. The repetition is what's going to make you really familiar with what you're doing, okay? So you must repeat, 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 okay? Now, that's the what you do to one, you do to all. Number 5, I've cut large enough for you that you can just smack this right down in the middle and it's going to cover that section. I don't even need that piece with the pencil mark on it. I'm going to leave that little scooch of fabric showing because that prevents shadowing of a dark fabric through a light fabric. So I don't have to go back and grade my seams. Just plopping it down in the middle there. Okay. Putting your glue in. You're going to love using the glue pen if you've never used it before. I use it in the place of pins a lot, and that might be another episode where I show you some tips and tricks for some of the tools you already own. Okay, back to the machine here, and we're going to open that up and we're going to sew the same way, a few stitches before. If you're just joining, hit that share button so that everybody else can watch in and learn how to do some paper piecing. And we're gonna, remember, you can watch this again after I repost it. It lives on my Facebook page and it also goes to my YouTube channel too. So if You want to go back and look at previous episodes, you're welcome to do that on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook page. They all live there. So you can go back and watch it over and over and over again. Okay? You're sewing on that line 5, or line 4, I'm sorry. We're moving on to line 5 next. Okay, so cut that, then, and if you really want to do, we're going to press here. Okay, you're going to press that. That covers all the way to the edge. That's excellent. Pressing, pressing. If you really like this and you want to do some more paper piece patterns, I have a couple others, 2 in my book, Splash of Color, a rainbow black and white quilt. You can get that on my site too, and I will sign it for you if you order it from my site. And I also have another pattern called Crystals, which is paper piece. They're nice, great beginner paper piecing patterns. And if you want a full video, you can join me on two of my Craftsy classes too. And they're both on paper piecing. One's a double wedding ring pickle dish quilt, and the other one is a QuiltWorks Dresden plate. So I have 2 Craftsy classes too, and you can link to those from my website as well. So now we're on the last line, line 5. We're going to do the same thing. You sewed through it, so you're going to pull that back away from your paper. Trim down to 1/4 inch. Oops, let me get that out of there. We're going super fast now. I'm putting on the jetpack. Here we go. Pedal to the metal, ladies and gentlemen. And my quilt inspector, he's all pooped out. He's just laying here sleeping now. That's not a bad thing. He says, I've seen this happen before. So, okay, so one last piece to put on here, and then I'm going to show you the trim down. Then I'll give you homework for the next session, okay? So this one here, we're going to plop down. Oh, it's important where we plop this one down. So if you can see, actually, I want to grab the other piece. Here's my section 6, okay, that I marked it on the back there. I'm going to turn it here, and I want my yellow piece to come all the way around that edge. Do you see that? If I have it like this here, see this? The yellow is in here. This piece, when I press it open, is going to be no yellow there, and I need to have the yellow there. So we want that section 6 all covered. Okay, so this is how it should look, that section 6. Okay, see my yellow peeking out there? That's how it should look. Okay, so then once I have it on there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my glue in there, and I'm going to do the same thing to the others. I'm going to make them all look alike. Okay, that's super duper important. Make them look alike. If you got them looking alike and you've done your checks, then they're all going to be right. If you don't have them looking alike and you didn't do your checks, something's going to go wrong, and you're going to have to take your stitches out. And by the way, I have a super duper easy way to take stitches out too. If you go on my YouTube channel and you look for the video how to unrip with an eyebrow trimmer, so go look for that on my YouTube channel. Okay. So I'm going to turn you back here. We're going to sew this last line, then I'm going to show you how to trim down. Then I'll give you your homework. Okay? Here we go. See, and this didn't take me long to do. It took me maybe 20 minutes to do 3 blocks. I did more talking than I did sewing, right? And so if you guys are doing this at home, you're going to get these done really fast. That's why chain piecing is so important, because you can get them done real quick. Okay? All right, so last one. Big photo finish here. Okay, so now, last thing we do here is we're going to go ahead and press. Okay, so we're going to turn them over, and we are going to press. Okay, so now we've got these 3 section 2s all ready to go. You got to give them a good press. I would advise using your iron. Do not use steam. I use a dry iron. Steam will cause your papers to wrinkle and shrink, and we want them to all stay the same size. So now this is how you're going to trim down. So this is what you got, okay? And we've got to trim that away. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a ruler, any ruler that has a straight edge. For this one, I'm just going to turn my add a quarter ruler on the other side because it's got this lip, and I'm going to trim exactly on that outside. On my pattern, it's a dotted line, so I'm going to trim right on that outside dotted line. I'm going to trim it away. So you're trimming right on the line. So you're kind of, let's say, splitting the line in half, right? Because you don't want to get it on the inside of the line or the outside. The outside, the block is going to be too big. The inside, you're going to lose your seam allowance, okay? And we don't want to do that. So that's how you trim it up. So there's your block, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead, and if my quilt inspector would move just a little bit, I'm going to move the camera back because I'm going to talk to you a little bit here. So I hope you enjoyed that. I had a couple faux pas. My mom called. I love you, Mom. I'll call you back. And the quilt inspector came up. I don't know if you can see him sitting here. He's right there. There he is. There's his back. He's looking at me. But anyway, so here's what you need to do for the next episode. I want you to go ahead and I want you to finish your triangle 2s, okay? Finish those up. Move on to your triangle 1s, or start with one or the other. It doesn't matter which you started with. I happen to start with triangle 2 today, but you can do either one. Finish up all 4 of each and trim them down to this size, okay? You want to trim them down to this. When we come back next time, I'm going to show you how to join them together perfectly so that you don't have to worry about, you know, how you're joining them. So I'm going to show you how to join them together perfectly. Once you've got these done, I will tell you, it's at this point you can go ahead and you can rip the paper off of the entire thing if you'd like, okay? And if you want to wait until next time, that's fine. That way you can see, you know, if you want to just keep them separate, triangle 1, triangle 2, not a problem. But if you rip it off, that's great too. So I'm going to show you next time how to put them together. If you have questions, put them in the comments here. I will answer them. Also, make sure you share. If you haven't shared already, share it because it's a really cool little tutorial, and I think others who haven't tried paper piecing will get a lot out of it. And remember, I'm going to post this video again. I'm going to post it on Facebook so you can watch it again. I'm going to also post it on my YouTube channel. And you can access my YouTube channel from my website. Down at the bottom, there's the social icons. Just click on YouTube, and I'll also put the link for you here too. So you want to check out my other video. So the one before this one was the prep work, the pattern and all that. So definitely do that, okay? So that's it in a nutshell for today, but I am going to tell you one thing. Next week, there's not going to be a Watch Me Wednesday. I'm taking the day off, and I'm going to do something fun. So we're going to skip 1 week, so you have actually 2 weeks to get your homework done, and it won't take you that long to do it. I know it won't. I know it won't take you 2 weeks because I know you all can do it. In fact, I hope you become so addicted to this method that you actually make more than one block, which you might want to go back and you might say, you know what, I get it. This is easy. I'm going to make several of these, and you can go up and you can run off more if you want. Make as many as you want. But I want you to come back the following week. So in 2 weeks, come back for episode 12, and I'm going to show you how to join everything together, okay? Thank you all for joining me today. I had fun. I hope you did. And yes, I'll be answering your questions. Take care, everybody. Have a fabulous weekend, a fabulous next week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.